Hey everyone, Stephen here. Welcome to what has ended up being the third session of my Transmission Burst Mondays, my attempt to get through some of the games I got through the bundle of the Racial Justice Bundle over on itch. The game we're running today, Whispers of the Green, is another hack of Fall of Magic by Ross Cowman, published by UFO Press as part of their Transmission Burst series. If you're looking for it in the bundle of Racial Justice, it is part of the Transmission Burst Anthology, Volume 1, I believe. Unlike The Fall of Magic, in which we play a group of fantasy adventurers traveling to save the world, in this game we play a doomed expedition traveling to the lost city of Imlutha. Much in the vein of Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. We are all doomed, but we'll try to have some fun along the way. So yeah, this is a game run through the gauntlet. So as usual, we're using all the gauntlet safety tools, among them lines and veils, in which we have already set up lines on sexual assault and homophobia, meaning they won't be in this game, and veils on sexual content and torture, meaning that if they do happen, will fade to black or gloss over the details. And an ask verse on suicide, which means we're fine with it being in the game, but if you're planning on introducing it, we'll want to take a quick time out and make certain that everyone's okay. Besides that, we'll also be doing the X card, in which if something happens that is upsetting or triggering for people here, that you can either signal an X in chat or on the video, and we'll stop. We might ask what in particular you're X-carding, but there's no need to justify it. We'll just write it out of the game. And also script change, which is a set of tools that we might fast forward to say that we want to gloss over this, even if it wasn't in the veils. We might pause to say we want to take a moment to talk about things, much as if we had an axe first. Or we might rewind, in which we go back and change something that's already happened. Maybe we realize, this is actually something that in retrospect, I actually don't want to be a part of the fiction. Or we might also have, like, I have a really neat idea. Wouldn't it have been cool if this happened back then instead of that? That's also something I've done quite a lot. So yeah. And besides that, as always, we are making use of the Gauntlet's open door policy. If anyone needs to step away from the group, there is no pressure to stay. If like you want to let us know if you'll be coming back, that would be great. But if there's an emergency, don't feel the need to. I should note ahead of time, there is a rolling blackout warning in my area. So if I should suddenly disappear and then not reappear for like say 10 to after 15 minutes, I would say the game is over. I have no power or ability to connect to the internet where I am. So that is a heads up from me. I might end up having to make use of that. But this is but if people could make introductions of just who you are, this is a pretty straightforward game to make characters in. Like each of our character concepts is basically one sentence long. So if you just want to introduce who you are, and then we'll talk about characters. Kind of going, I guess, clockwise for me in this chat. Mario.
Hey, my name is Mario. Use he him pronouns. And I just would like you to come over and join us on the Gauntlet and have a couple of real nice games.
Oh, right. Of course, as always, I should note, as I said, this is hosted through the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet is an online club that publishes a codex, hosts several podcasts, and also as most important to this game, also hosts a calendar, which hosts many different role-playing games every month, which people are free to sign up on, whether you are a member of the Gauntlet or not. So go check it out. There will be a link in the description of the video. Sorry about that, folks. Continuing on to Brandon.
Hi, I'm Brandon. Played a number of the Gauntlet games, and I've really enjoyed it.
Hi, I'm Bodhi, they, them pronouns, and yeah, been a member of a Gauntlet for a few months. Joined during a Gauntlet Open Gaming weekend, of which there is another one coming up, so it's a perfect time to check it out. October, I think, although I cannot remember the dates.
Cool. Yeah, and then this brings us to, cool, with everything gone over, this brings us to character creation. That the game of Whispers of the Green begins at the, always begins at Miskatonic University, but not all of us necessarily come from there. I know that someone has decided, has already written down a name and a closeted occultist of Miskatonic University. But other places you can be from are also Paris, Constantinople, or the lost city of Imlutha. Do any of those, and basically every character at the start of the game consists of a trait and a place that they are from. So do any of those traits stand out to folks? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I'm
this side. Oh, yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I'm kind of choosing between two very opposite ones, which is Arkham Dockworker or Wise Hierophant. So
I like them both.
Pardon, sorry, I missed that.
Like them, I would like them both. They're great.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, is anyone kind of drawn to either of those, which would kind of inform my choice?
No, I have other thoughts myself. Mario, did you have anything you were attracted to?
Yeah, I was thinking of the Bohemian musician or the Shadow Out of Time. Because Shadow Out of Time, whatever, we'll play to find out. And the Bohemian musician is probably might be the most cheerful character I had in a while.
Yeah.
Well, last time was okay.
Cool. I kind of am also interested in Shadow of Time. I might also pick up Affluent Princeling just to have someone wealthy and out of their depths in the game.
If you picked the Dock Worker, we could have known each other. We could know each other.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for the Dock Worker.
Cool.
Definitely, because then that's a kind of archetype that isn't covered by anyone else, so I think that works well.
Yeah, and if you wanted to take the Shadow Out of Time, Mario, I'm fine with going with Affluent Princeling. But that, of course, is
musician.
I think I would rather go for the musician, because in this constellation, I think the musician would be more fun for me personally to play, because I have a much clearer image of where I'm going with that.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. So, for each of these characters, if you could note their names, pronouns, and just take one of those lines. This is a pretty simple game, so if you there's space under it, because you will you may eventually add traits to your character. Um,
So, okay, the name's dropping in. Okay. Ward.
Okay.
I do like this lineup: Erasmus, Ward, Rutherford, and Jimmy.
I figured a dock worker's probably not going to have a
Yeah.
kind of a kind of odd name. Like it just seems kind of I like Jimmy. Also,
I'll say it makes sense for some characters to be that might be known by their last name too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think of Rutherford as a fellow who's called by his last name.
Also, if any of you follow cricket, which I realise is incredibly unlikely, Jimmy Anderson has got 2 wickets to go to take 600 wickets, which is an amazing lifetime achievement. So it's Jimmy in Skype because I'm thinking of Jimmy Anderson today.
Cool. So yeah, we have our characters lined out. We have Ward, our shadow out of time of Imlutha, Erasmus, our bohemian musician from Paris, Rutherford, our closeted occultist from Miskatonic University, and Jimmy, our Arkham dock worker, also of Miskatonic. So this is a game where, of course, our characters begin very kind of only very lightly sketched out, and we'll get a chance to kind of build them out as the game advances. So a couple things I should note on our journey is that there are a couple notes I make at certain places. There are some locations that, well, we'll get into that, but yeah, we'll just open with, we open as every game with the is much like Fall of Magic. Whispers of the Green has us traveling across a series of locations on the journey. At each location, each of us will get a chance to host or narrate a scene, in which, much like if we were playing Microscope, you have final say of who is and who is not in the scene, but people can still volunteer details, ideas, or to play characters within the scene. So this is very, like, each scene is very loose. It can be like just a narrated snippet. It can also be like an actual interaction between folks. But our game opens at Miskatonic University. Besides each character scene, there is also a scene for the location, in which, in this game, we, as the rules state, each destination is a scene and story prompt of its own. Describe them from the vantage of a remorseful and fearful narrator, painting the things to come with dread. So I think this is a moment to just go full purple prose with us. And so kind of as an example, Miskatonic University has the prompt of how little we knew then, that we were a group of hopeful explorers granted funds beyond granted funds unwisely by the foundation, sending us out into the world. We thought we would come back acclaimed for our discoveries. In the end, none of us would come back at all. So that is kind of the tone we are going with for each of those openings. I'll probably rotate that to another player for next time. But does anyone have one of those prompts that stand out to you? And I should note that the library has a special one in which it asks you to pick one. If you choose the library, you get to add that trait as a trait of your character, but you'll also want to incorporate why you gained that trait into the scene. So our choices are the archaeology department, the mathematics department, the bursar's office, which for people who are unfamiliar with the title is the person is basically the person in charge of like accounting and grants for a university, and the library.
The archaeology department speaks to me, and I think I'm potentially going to play it straighter than it potentially intends. In that, I'm going to say that all you kind of highfalutin types on your expedition are kind of concerned about the intellectual and the artistic aspects, and I'm the one left lugging all the stuff that you've forgotten. It all got kind of dumped in a side room in the archaeology department, and you just see me like complaining about like the fact that I'm going to be doing all the work on this expedition as I hump these kind of wheelbarrows full of kind of scientific instruments and
I kind of want to ask everyone what is like the thing of yours that that Jimmy is humping to the station.
I have an astrolabe, a big one.
It's one that's so awkward to pack that I'm kind of like in amongst the planets. I'm kind of holding on to the sun, and kind of like the planets are occasionally like hitting me in the head.
It actually breaks down into 4 pieces, each of which are so large and
I think I have an entire rack of coats in like slightly different colors.
Yeah, I think maybe you remember like this. I don't know like which century they're exactly from, but those almost wardrobe-sized suitcases people had like in the past, and I have 2 of them full of musical instruments. So it's not only heavy and super unpractical to move, it also makes noises all the time whenever you like turn
accordion
flip them.
just like a tiny snippet of orchestra tuning up noise every time I kind of bump it against anything.
We know where the odd sounds in the night all come from. You hear strange piping. Yes.
Yeah.
I think I just want to end it there.
Okay, cool. So I think we'll go around clockwise from this, but yeah, I think that I kind of think that Ward is like working with someone in the mathematics department. And I think we see this image of like the maths professor just getting increasingly infuriated with Ward because like whenever I'm around, like it's not that experiments are going wrong, it's that basic math problems go wrong around Ward. They're like, okay, 1 + 1 = 3. And they're like, wait, no, hang on. And they erase that. And then they write in 3 again. And they're like, what? How is this happening? And they're just like, clearly you do not understand abstract mathematics, sir. I will take my leave. And I think that's the scene we see with Ward. Either of those Mario stand out to you? Or I should say your character is Erasmus, right?
Erasmus.
Let me change my character.
Oh yeah, that would totally make sense to rename. Oh, wasn't there once an option where you could rename yourself?
Yeah, if you go to those 3 dots on your little character below, there is an edit name option. Oh,
Okay,
oops! I actually
so
need
I'll
to
do
change
that
my name
afterwards.
to Erasmus. Not.
we got 2 Erasmus now.
There we go.
Okay, so I think I go and pick the library then, because I don't know what I would do with my musical trait at the office. So we see the library. It's kind of like getting dark by now, but still it's like just before the exam, so a lot of people still there. And then we see somebody totally dressed totally inappropriate, maybe like in swimwear or something like that, entering the library with like one of those big drums on the back and a guitar in their hand, and like just jamming really loud in the library, and talking about making up songs about how you should not waste your time with education, but rather travel the world. And that the smartest man started by dropping out of college and stuff like that. So really anti-institutional education, and making a whole thing. But the thing is, the students are like so focused, they don't even really care. And then I like without getting a new fan base, just security comes up and throws me out.
Are you gaining wisdom or madness from this?
Well,
I think
sort
you're
of
speaking
both.
to a sort of wisdom. You're revealing a sort of wisdom that the mainstream just doesn't want to acknowledge.
Yeah, that we could go with that. I'm fine with either one, but wisdom sounds fine.
Guess you could interpret madness in the sense of rage or extreme annoyance rather than insanity.
Or it could simply be something that you saw there, or that struck you. It made no sense.
I think I go with wisdom, that just like those people here in, where do we start? We start in Arkham, right? So the people of Arkham just don't have tasty music or
Yeah.
or fashion or anything else.
God, are you also just like a shadow out of time, like just from the modern era, just playing heavy metal for these 1920s folks?
That's you.
I know. But yeah, then Rutherford, are you making a visit to the bursar's office as like the one responsible member of the group?
Oh yes, responsible. But so yes, so I'm sitting at a table in the bursar's office, reading from some little pocket tome. And the assistant bursar comes in, and he says, "I'm sorry, Dr. Rutherford, but you have listed here that you need two letters of credit, each for $1,000 for this expedition, in addition to the monies we've already put up." And he says, I can't see what you have here within this prospectus for the expedition that justifies this. And so I'm afraid I'm going to have to, I'm afraid there's no reason that, the way that the university, can possibly accept these. And Rutherford goes, "Yes, I see." And then he looks significantly at the assistant bursar and he goes, "I know where your family lives." And the fellow says, "I'll have them approved straight away."
Good thing we're getting out of town. But yes, we proceed onwards. As I mentioned before the recording, given how the last session we ran, I'm removing the HMS alert location just to keep it to the same number as last time, since that ran about at our slot length. So we are continuing on to Paris, and I guess going clockwise for me. Erasmus, do you want to give us our narration on the decadence of civilization?
Well, decadence is quite a stretch, because for everybody born and raised in Paris, this is actual just plain culture. This is the nuances in color that others lack. And we're here in the land of freedom and liberty, the actual land of freedom and liberty, not like those made-up American dreams. Just knows what culture truly is. And those guys appreciate my music.
Where is this taking place?
Well, the opening is always this narration.
Oh,
That this is the kind of narration that runs as we come upon this location.
I see. But what location is it?
Paris.
Paris.
Oh, okay.
So like if you continue down, because we're skipping past the HMS alert, the next one along the line, if you look at the journey sheet, is Paris.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
And I just thought, as I'm originally from Paris, I just give it a bit of Erasmus flavor to the description.
Right.
Because that just seems to fit.
Yeah. And to give someone else the opportunity, because Jimmy has already gotten the first choice, does one of the rest of you have... I mean, I have an idea. Like, I do just want to push La Cochin d'Attire Bistro away from straight-up cannibalism. Because I have an idea where we sort of open, and, like, the menu of the Cochin d'Attire is, like... the pleasure of first love soup, the memory of my youth, the memory of my youth paella, things like that. What do each of you order as we're here?
I order the Vichyssoise, which has the subtext of the first secret revealed. and I gaze at it for about 10 minutes before taking a drop.
I'll order the Anthem of Eternity. And I think that is just a stupid joke because it takes forever till the plate finally comes.
Maybe it never arrives.
Yes.
But Monsieur ordered the Anthem of Eternity.
What about Jimmy? What does Jimmy get?
I'm currently drawing the blank. I think that Jimmy would order a steak, but what the steak does is, I think it's a. I think it is. This pun is very language specific, so it doesn't work for Paris. But I think it is the mistake, and it's a memory item. I don't get what I'm ordering because I don't understand what I'm ordering because I don't speak French, and I'm actually ordering something that will bring to mind the memory of my greatest mistake, which is just an image of me embarking on this expedition.
Yes. And I think, like, while we're eating, Ward turns to you, Erasmus, and is it pleasant for you, Erasmus, to be returned to the place of your origin?
A wonderful experience. After traveling to such strange lands as I did these past years. It is my... I think it feels like a second birth. It's a rebirth of myself to be in such a culturally rich country again, not like the other savage countries I traveled to, like Germany and England and the United States, and yeah,
Yes.
I'm glad to be back.
Yes, the savagery of this world is always disheartening to me. I have the memory of a place that was more pristine and perfect than any of your nations. That seems too much of a compliment to call your warlords. But
that is actually a good idea. We should establish the warlord of Paris.
that does seem like a good title for you, Erasmus.
Oh, thank you very much. I feel honored by such compliment.
You are a king among savages. And then I kind of go over, and then I kind of spear the last of your steak, Jimmy, and put it into my mouth and say, "Your regrets are very savory, Mr. Jimmy." And I'm taking strange hunger.
Yes.
And that was what I wanted for that moment. Unless if people want to move on to seeing what perhaps Erasmus picks.
I just want to check in with the others if anybody has anything they aiming for, they have a particular idea about.
Yeah, I should also note, like, I'm doing clockwise for ease, but if people have something they feel really strongly about, feel free to chime in.
I have an idea for a strangely familiar painting in the alleys of Montmartre,
Okay.
but it's just an idea, so I'm not kind of wedded to that.
I'll go with I'll take the Louvre.
Okay, perfect. And I go with Notre Dame Cathedral, which fits quite perfect for a musician, I guess. Okay, so the thing is, Notre Dame, famous in all the world. A true marvel of French architecture. And I think I'm very keen to play some sort of tour guide for all of you. And you're already maybe quite annoyed about all the details I tried to point out during our stay in Paris.
Yes.
And now I'm really determined to wait for another 35 minutes until the bells of Notre Dame will ring again, like the full spectrum. And not only those 2 dongs for half the hour or something like that. No, we need the full hour here at Notre Dame. But once the full hour has come, well, maybe you find it quite entertaining, but you all can see how all the tan I gained due to traveling the world in summer is just vanishing, and I'm standing there pale. And I'm just looking over to you if anybody else would have heard it, because what I just heard gave me the creeps. I've heard a voice, maybe rather many voices, just between the tones of the bells, whispering, "The death of France has come." I'm like, whoa.
Rutherford is a secret occultist. Is this something that Rutherford studies?
Absolutely. Rutherford, in anticipation of the bells coming out, has taken out something which at casual glance is a tuning fork. But it has 3 tines and it's 3-dimensional. And so it can't vibrate the way a tuning fork does. Except when the bells ring, it does visibly vibrate. And he holds the tuning fork up to one ear and nods quietly to himself, and then he puts a gentle hand on Erasmus' shoulder and he says, "Don't worry, it will be quick."
I turn to you and say, "Did you know
Not
about
until,
this treason?"
not until now, I say, looking at my device. Thank you. You've been very educational.
I think right now, there's only a single question. Are you with or against the people of France?
Yeah. And Rutherford says yes.
And I think just the way Erasmus has behaved so far, he takes that for the yes he wants to hear, and just goes with it.
Do you perhaps become convinced that what lies at the end of our journey is France's salvation?
Well, so far, only me and Rutherford know about this this looming threat. And as Rutherford just agreed to help me, I'm sure we will be France's rescue in this desperate times.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about tablets.
Cool. Oh,
So now,
we lost. Let's just give him.
no.
Oh, here he is.
The Doom of France came early.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is like, do I have issues with my connectivity? Did I interrupt before, or was that just a single accident?
That was just like a
That-
single.
That
Yeah.
was the first time for me.
Okay. Otherwise, let me know. Maybe I need to
Okay.
reboot the router if that happens more often.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I haven't been experiencing any problems from your end. Cool. So yeah, Rutherford, like that seems like a point to end the scene there. Rutherford, you said you were interested in visiting the Louvre.
Yes, absolutely. Rutherford is looking at some of the great paintings of the world, at La Gioconda and a few others. Although he finally he passes them over, and he is regarding a small painting in an out of the way corner. A museum docent comes by with a group and says, "No, this work is." That's strange. I don't seem to have it in my catalog. This work must be a recent acquisition, and we will cover it in tomorrow's tour. And very nervously leads the group on to the next painting. And then there is someone comes in the wake of the group and taps Rutherford on the shoulder. And Rutherford turns to this rather portly man, obviously French, with a bowler hat. And he says, Monsieur Chambertin, is it time then? Yes. Very well. We have the tablets with us, and we hope to set them up in the city. But it has become clear that there are interlopers on the way of our journey who will likely try to murder us when they realize that we are on the way to Imlutha. Yes, says Shambhala. Is there anything that we can do to forestall disaster? And Shambhala says, only at a very great cost. And he produces a small vial of oily black liquid. I would not recommend its use except in direst urgency, but it may preserve you when it seems like everything is lost. And Rutherford goes, I understand. It's good to see you, old friend. This may be the last time. And Chambers' hand nods. And then they both look at the painting. And Rutherford says, I don't remember this painting. And Chambertin says, it appeared on the wall about 2 weeks ago. With no obvious origin. I expect it will disappear in a week or so. We are lucky to be able to see it. It is, we think it's a Van Gogh, one of the ones that was lost in the fire. And that's the end of the scene.
Awesome. And then, yeah, Jimmy, what is this scene we have over in the alleys of Montmartre?
So, we have our closeted occultist, but what none of the other expedition members know is that Jimmy is a closeted art lover and kind of keeps it a very closely guarded secret because he has a reputation to maintain as the practical one, as the one who gets
As
stuff
the
done. And so and so he's I think his Jimmy's mother was an artist, and kind of he inherited her love of art, and they wouldn't even, like, he hasn't kind of gone to the Louvre, like he doesn't have the clothes, they wouldn't even let him in. So he's heard of this small gallery in the alleys of Montmartre. So whereas everyone else thinks he's going off to find a gambling den, he's going to kind of visit this gallery. He's heard of it, has a exhibition on at the moment called I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, but La Souffrance, which is the suffering, and it's kind of an exhibition on the kind of the hubris of humanity kind of taking on power and airs that are above them. It's a kind of very kind of humbling sort of work. And as I walk into this exhibition, I give a double take and almost turn and run, but steel myself and look again, and it's past. And what I see is that the first canvas I look at, the subject of that painting in their suffering is I'm going to kind of not kind of elaborate on that. I'm kind of it's clearly not kind of. I don't want to cross our lines, so I'm going to leave that unsaid. But it's not anything that would be covered in the lines. And but in their kind of multitudinous forms of despair, the main subject of the first painting, on first glance, I see my face. And so I look at another, and on first glance, I see my face. And every painting in the place, on first glance, I see my face. And it just, the reason that I'm on this expedition is because I've heard of the mythical art of I keep forgetting the name of Imlutha, and I want to see it for myself. And I've completely kind of poo-pooed the notions of anything odd and strange going on, but these multitudinous premonitions of doom, I think, are kind of start niggling at my brain, and I return, and
I
think, oh, go on.
I have a thought for like the last painting that you see there, if you're okay with it.
Go for it.
I think it's one of your mother's paintings.
Oh.
And I think that it is a pristine city kind of melting as if under a blazing heat, hot enough to melt metal and flesh. And it is titled Impressions of Imlutha on Fire.
And I think that I have never seen this painting before, but it has my mother's signature. I know my mother's signature. And yeah, I return to the group, and I think you all assume that I've had a very bad evening's gambling. I am not in a good mood.
Awesome. So that wraps up our time at Paris, and we're just about hitting the hour. So are people cool with meeting in about, say, like 5 after? Cool. Everyone's back. How are folks doing?
Fine.
Cool. So yeah, we depart from Paris and board the Orient Express. And I want to pass again on the chance to be our as our remorseful and fearful narrator, painting the things to come with dread onto Rutherford for the prompt of A Strange Land Glimpsed in Dreams.
There is not one of us during the trip from Paris to Constantinople passes through a great many. This fog seems to have the effect of making many of the passengers and all of us extraordinarily sleepy, more so than we'd otherwise be. And so the train takes on the somewhat depopulated air as so many passengers, many more passengers than usual, are asleep rather than being within the common spaces, or they are sleeping in their seats. And each of us dreams of Imlutha. We dream of our coming to this place, and every one of us encounters something in the dream that makes us suddenly wake up. In realization, in terror, in inspiration. And for a moment, not remember that it's only a dream, for it seems so very real. And if anyone wants to volunteer the dreams, a dream that they had or incorporated into their scene, they should do that.
I think picking up on last scene, I think I see my mother. I think I see my mother at the end of the dream, and she has a paintbrush in her hand, but she's holding it like this, like you would hold a knife, and it's dripping red, and I know that it's not paint.
I think Erasmus has the strangest dreams he ever had. He was dreaming of this super interesting orchestra he was listening to. It was an ensemble of people all in hooded cloaks, all dressed black. There was no gaslight, no electricity, only candles illuminating only the instruments. And now in retrospect, it seemed odd that the candles kind of were like only illuminating the instruments and not even really the hands of the musicians playing, just really give the instruments themselves, the instruments itself, a sort of a glow to it. And then the orchestra played, and it played for ages, and it was the most beautiful dream. And Erasmus felt alive and warm and happy, and it was the best time Erasmus ever had. But then those happiness, those sounds, the music, the notes began to tear upon the very person of Erasmus and upon all of the other members of the audience. And then they got ripped, their clothes got ripped off by the music, and then the music started to tear on the hairs of the audience, and then on the fingernails, and on the very skin. And in the moment where Erasmus saw his nose getting plainly ripped off, he wakes up in cold sweat.
Yeah, I think to continue on this theme, we see Ward's mother painting. And it is a kind of swirling, impressionist, abstract thing, speaking more to emotion and feeling. But as we kind of zoom out, we see that what she's painting on is a field of the dead. And she turns and says, Ward, our art is not, our canvas is not the lesser thing of other artists. Our art is the flesh and blood of our people. And that's when I think I wake up.
And for Rutherford, and I'll take the location, the sleeper cabin here, so as not to have people repeat themselves. He dreams, and he dreams of Imlutha. And as he comes to the city, there is an easel set up, and And someone is painting the very city that he sees before him. That they are on a rise, looking down at the buildings of the city and its strange geometry. And there is someone there who is painting it, and Rutherford is struck by the realism of the painting. And he sees that there is this building there is very well represented, and so is this one. And then he sees the painter dip his brush in and begin to work on an edge of his existing work on this enormous canvas that he is working on. And Rutherford looks, and he sees that as the brush moves, things come into existence in Imlutha. That the painter is not describing with his brush what the city is, but he is making the city by painting.
Yeah, he's proscribing with his brush.
Yeah. And Rutherford gazes astonished at the city and then looks back at the painter and the canvas. And the painter is gone. Just a brush lying on the easel of this enormous unfinished work. And Rutherford picks the brush up and motions his hand towards the canvas. And then a moment of terror strikes him. And he drops it and he wakes up. He throws on his coat and leaves the sleeper cabin immediately to go to the balcony on the train outside, and stands there for hours despite the chill that pervades the area.
Cool. So, as part of this scene, you have the option of changing one of your traits. Your only trait right now is closeted occultist. Do you want to change that to something else? I mean, it could just be to just straight up occultist. You're not secret about it anymore.
I think so. I think that's, yeah, a painter is not quite, but at this point yes. So you see that when he comes back, he is openly wearing a strange pendant on a chain. Which has the form of a star with odd markings on it that are difficult to understand.
Cool. So yeah, do any of the other options stand out as something people want? Otherwise, I'd look to Jimmy to volunteer for the next one. But of course, if Erasmus, you have one that really stands out to you, feel free to bring it up.
I think if no one has any that they definitely want to take, I'm going to go for a visit from the conductor. And I think this is checking of tickets, but I think that out of our party, only I get my ticket checked because I look a little out of place on this. It's kind of very decadent, very kind of highly decorated train. I'm sitting there in my work boots, and as I get my ticket checked, it's kind of, I think everyone's there at this point. Kind of, we're sharing a compartment, and I think it's kind of clear that I'm being kind of somewhat othered by this, by being the only one who's asked to have my ticket checked, and so I'm the only one who brushes hands with the conductor as I hand over my ticket rather surlily, and his hands are ice cold, like he's been shoveling snow with his bare hands for the last hour. And where they touch my hands, I feel a echo of that coldness, and that echo doesn't go away. And I think it's a constant reminder to me that you were going to say?
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a constant reminder to me that I don't fit into this world that we're traveling in.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of give Erasmus, because I do like that thought, if you're fine with it, I think the conductor looks straight at you and says in this cold, hollow voice, "You don't belong here." And then plays a jaunty tune. But
okay. In that case, Erasmus would just stand up. I imagine we were all sitting in our cabin. And he would straight stand up, and I mean he's got quite long legs, looking real tall. I imagine him being maybe rather skinny, but just tall enough to be some sort of intimidating. And he would try. Well, that's just something he learned on his travels. He would try to just stand a tiny bit too close to the conductor to make him feel a bit uncomfortable, because it was Erasmus' part to invade the conductor's personal space, so to speak. And then I would say, well, we all got tickets, so I suspect all of us belong here, at least in a manner a conductor would belong on a train. What would you do if there weren't any passengers? You wouldn't have had a reason to be here. So be grateful that we decided to come on this journey alongside of you.
he nods. Then let me see your ticket, sir.
I hand it over. Well, no, I let I give Jimmy a look, and I think as Jimmy has taken care of the planning so far.
You lost your ticket.
No, I think
maybe,
Erasmus. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think I just I just have all the tickets because I'm the one who has everything in hand. And so I look through my wallet and also hand over Rasmus's ticket, and I give a kind of slightly pointed stare at this point.
Yeah, the conductor methodically stamps each of your tickets, and then kind of says, as he does so, "It is a warning, sir. You do not belong here. When the time comes for them to make a sacrifice, see that it is not you." And then he hands back the tickets and continues down the hall.
For a free service of, it is a warning, sir. A free service of the drinker.
Yes. And
Service
I
of
think
warning.
I don't comment on the strangeness of this, but I turn to Erasmus and say, thank you, my friend.
And I think Erasmus is the kind of guy that gives you unsolicited advice on how to step up for others, and to how to how do you say maybe stand up for yourself, and not let others treat you like this, especially if you're traveling. And then he comes up with like super dumb comparisons, like they can sniff your fear.
And I think, having experienced the cold hands of the conductor, I'm kind of in a mind to take this rather more literally than you were perhaps intending. So I'm kind of just sitting there, kind of shivering slightly. And while I'm perfectly assertive in normal circumstances, and I think you just assume that I'm kind of some kind of social wallflower, and I'm not at all, but I'm just freaked out.
Yeah, Erasmus wouldn't be able to read the situation. in
Okay. Good.
I think scene ends there.
Yep. I do like the thought of the excited passenger, but I kind of want to see that as the end of the scene, because I feel like it's going to be hard to have like meeting of the fellow. Well,
there may be,
in response to the murder.
There may be slight involved.
I do like the idea that like there's an if this is okay with, if you're fine with taking the other one, Erasmus.
So sorry, you wanted the expired passenger, right?
Yeah.
And he wants to go.
Okay.
I can take it now though. Like if you want to have it, if you're fine with having
do it live.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's cool to have a couple other passengers introduced beforehand, so you have quite a range of people missing. Okay, so the dining car. I think at some point I just get hungry, and then I straight walk out the cabin. After a couple seconds, I step back in and say, anybody wants anything? Or maybe do we want to go have grab dinner together? I don't know your preferences on this one.
I am quite content with Mr. Jimmy's fears and regrets, but I will accompany you.
As well.
Always up for some grub.
Soon gives Ward a weird look.
And I think we have to go through maybe like one or two other wagons to arrive at the dining car. there, just Erasmus just routinely checks the room, tries to read a bit, and while just like looking into all the faces of people turned towards him, he comes across a 3-person like chamber orchestra kind of thing.
Are they actively playing or are they eating?
No, they are actively playing.
Okay.
Because we're like fancy folk. We'd
Right.
like to
Okay.
have some entertainment. So, and the thing is, for some reason, they're hooded, and they have their hoods like deep in their faces, and you only can see like smiling lips, which looks super spooky. And Erasmus just doesn't know if he's got like a weird spot within the car, so that the lighting is really bad or something. But he feels reminded of his dream from earlier, so he's a bit spooked out already. And then just tries to get his shit together, and finds a table, like addressing it with a hurry, and saying like, "Oh, so many people here already. Glad we could even find a table. I didn't know people would eat so early. But yeah, have a seat." he clearly he's clearly super tense all of a sudden, and tries to try. I think he tries to make sure that all of you are his allies if it comes to the worst.
Yeah, and we do have a meeting with fellow travelers,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of curious if you're okay with me bringing someone into this scene.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because I think that like a very loud American woman and like her personal girl, like, you know, it's a common thing of the period for like a wealthy woman to like hire like a companion to travel with them. It's like, oh dear, it seems that there's nowhere to sit, and she kind of looks over at you. It seems there's some space here. Excuse me, sir, do you mind if we share this table with you?
Not at all. Please sit.
Sure.
So
More
what
the
brings,
merrier.
and she kind of is like, even though it is very cool, she is like continuously like fanning herself with like an elaborate fan, and her traveling companion kind of takes a seat timidly, let's say next to you, Erasmus. It says, what brings you lot to this ungodly place? I mean, truly, I do not expect to get good service outside of the States, but you know how the kinds, but I do not expect this kind of lax service before coming to the Orient.
Well, sounds like you're heading the wrong direction. You should have stayed in Paris. I can assure you. Through all out of France, you would be able to enjoy the best of services.
Oh, and don't get me started. Those Frenchmen with their putting their cream on everything. I think it's sexual, don't you?
Indeed, it is. And Erasmus is really awkwardly trying to flirt because he truly misreads the situation again.
I I mutter something about getting what you give.
I just truly hope that we're not getting more of this heavy French food on this service, and we're getting something a little bit more pleasant fare here.
And with that, the waiter comes and puts down the food, and it's nothing anyone has ever seen before. He says, today's specialty are delicacies from Romania, where we're passing through. And this is Romanian goulash. And you'd be hard pressed to tell what exactly is in this stew.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Erasmus wouldn't really eat it and try to engage in a conversation and ask, so, my ladies, what brings you out here closer to the edge of the world? How did you come to enjoy such adventurous travels?
Yeah, and I think that the companion speaks up a bit. Oh well, of course, there are only so many places you can go to see the antiquities of such great cities as Constantinople, Rome.
Yes, indeed. The old places of the world are the ones best worth exploring, don't you think?
And then the older one, I don't know about exploring, but one must be able to have said that one goes there. And after all it seems that all of the wealthy are making journeys to Turkey or Egypt now.
Okay, heartily digging into my soup, and you just hear a kind of muffled guffaw from me, and I kind of try and stifle it quickly.
Rutherford doesn't start to eat until a couple of minutes after Jimmy has started.
And to be clarified, I am just trying my best to channel Agatha Christie's impression of Americans in her novels.
No, I understand. No, Rutherford clearly wanted to wait to make sure that there wasn't anything poisonous in the fare before starting on himself. So he watches Jimmy carefully for a minute or two, and then satisfied, he begins to eat.
I think I want to throw in a detail, and I think there is this gaslights all over the car, and whenever the track isn't like perfectly leveled, it starts shaking, and within the shaking and within the play of light and shadows, I think we all got the feeling that whenever shadows hit us, the whole car is watching us, and whenever light comes back, people just regularly continue eating their food, playing the instruments, serve the people, whatever. And I think particularly the rich lady next to us has something going on. Whenever the shadow hits her, something's going on with her eyes. But it's a fraction of seconds, and nobody can tell, but it makes us well, maybe not Rutherford.
I think she even reaches like a little bit further for like a pendant that she wears, almost clutching at it protectively whenever the lights dim as well.
Rutherford smiles wryly and shakes his head.
I wonder if we catch glimpses when the shadows come of pupils that are another shape than round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you think on like catching that glimpse, that's a good moment to end the scene?
Yes.
Absolute.
Cool. So yeah, continuing on then, I think that this lady, let's call her Nora, I think that there is the sound of a scream echoing through the train cars that is just audible. Like, it's at first we think it's just the screeching of like the wheels grinding to the halt. But then I think that like before long there is another conductor, one much different from the one that came around before. This one doesn't have the edge of coldness about him. I am sorry to inform you all, but it appears there has been a event on the train. A wealthy American woman was found dead in her cabin, and we should inform you that when we pull into Constantinople, we will have to report this to the authorities. We have detained her companion on suspicion, but we do not have any evidence yet.
When the conductor leaves, I turn to Jimmy and to everyone and say, we must not be interrogated by the authorities.
Absolutely agree on this.
There are things in our baggage which would excite comment.
Oh, it was a bad idea to transport those human body parts across country lines, wasn't it?
What?
No,
There,
not to mention it will put us well behind schedule.
yes, of course.
And I pull out, kind of ever practical man, I pull out some timetables and maps and kind of try and work out a way of switching to a local train, have one stop early.
Yeah, and I think because you are the dock worker, do we kind of see you like we're abandoning a big part of our luggage, and we kind of see you leading us off like the roof of the train, like jumping across to another train that stopped at the station next to us. Like we're making an unscheduled transfer.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
We're making we're making a quiet departure, leaving behind enough things that no one thinks we're.
Yeah.
No one thinks we've packed up and left. Grabbing a few things from out of the baggage car, but much diminished. He says I must take the rubbings of the stones and certain ingredients. It will have to be enough.
And I think I'd like to. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Okay. I just have a quick note. Whenever Erasmus is leaving the place at the table after the warning that some sort of authorities might come here, we see this neat little canvas bag laying on the table, and while the camera pans across it, we see the tip of a little pipe looking out of it, and the table is empty by then. It's just why Erasmus rather wouldn't come across authorities.
Okay.
I wonder if I could invite you all to say what you're most worried about leaving behind, what you most wish you could take with you but can't.
The astrolabe, of course. Without it, there is no guarantee that we will actually find Imlutha. Several of the previous expedition, from what we know, that tried to find it became hopelessly lost just prior to where the city should be. And having evidently both star, sextant and compass readings are unreliable in the area where the lost city is said to be. I'll have to try to do the calculations by hand, but it will be much harder.
Mm-hmm.
I think Erasmus really wanted to have this pipe with him, but he knows he can buy new ones, because this pipe and the substances he smokes are the only reason to make sense out of his strange dreams and visions he experiences all the time. And when consuming some sort of drug, he always can say, "Oh, that's because of the substance. It's not me. It's a substance." So this is he lost his way of escaping whatever craziness life holds for him.
I think Ward has had with him a kind of figure carved out of obsidian that then looks like something had managed to like melt it a bit so that its features were kind of melted away. And I think that, as Ward said, it's a reminder of home.
I think for Jimmy, it's very simple. Had to leave the heavy weapons behind. No more rifles. It's if we come across dangerous wild animals, or something else, we're a little less prepared now.
Mm-hmm.
Handguns it is, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And so that brings us now to our destination of Constantinople. And I think that the only one who hasn't gotten a chance to open a location with our doomed narrator is Jimmy. Of the prompt, they tried to warn us.
So many warnings. So many warnings ignored and brushed aside. Each of us had received a warning in their own journey, and each of us had ignored it, thinking we were the only one. If only we had known.
Cool. So yeah, do any of those locations stand out to folks as a place they want their character to visit? I think that the only one who hasn't gotten an opportunity to choose first is Erasmus, I believe. So I want to give that over to Erasmus if he had one that stood out to him.
No, I just would like to say, whoever is picking the opium den, like Erasmus, would want to come with them there.
Well, there's an implication, isn't there, that the opium den might lead to another place.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great opening theme. So.
I mean, I think that, like, depending on like how we're using Underworld, because it could of course also mean like just a like more figurative, like criminal underworld as well.
It's sure. I just noticed that
Yeah.
there is a line leading to the plateau of Lang.
Oh yes, it is not coming from there. At this point, we have two options from where we go next.
Got you.
I want to clarify that. From Constantinople, we'll either go to Outer Mongolia or the Plateau of Lang.
Yeah, that's always a difficult choice. Mongolia or Lang, really? Okay, I understand.
Because I do sort of have a thought for the opium den, if you want to go with that, Erasmus.
Well, I think maybe from my perspective, if I would have to pick a scene right now, I think I would go with the bazaar, because that makes the best opening just for how I read it.
Sure.
So I think we picked another train. It took us a bit longer to arrive in Constantinople. But luckily, we arrived not at Central Station, but rather at a station south of city center, and that is where thriving bazaar fills streets upon streets. So it's not only a couple of huge places, but also all the streets connecting the places is a very busy bazaar. And I think it is all exciting for us. There is certainly some smells we never smelled before. There is strange tools we never seen before. There is silk in such a sheer amount that we got the experience of an extremely wealthy city. The impression of a very wealthy city. We see amazing clothes, from coats to hats to shoes to pants to dresses, and the sheer color strikes us a bit odd, as we are used to gray, black, white, brownish colors, and here people like to express everything but those colors. So there's quite a contrast to it. The thing is, for some reason, at different times of our journey through the bazaar, every one of us sees the face of Nora somewhere within the crowd and just in arm's reach. So I would ask a question to all of you. Who's the one that actually reaches out for what we see as Nora? Because I think one of us just can't resist the urge to find out what actually happened.
I have a different thing in mind.
Okay. Well, I think then it's Erasmus. He tried to flirt, so that's fine with me. And Oh, maybe I just rephrased the question then. While I'm grabbing for Nora, for Nora's shoulder, what do the others see? Do the others also see Nora, or is it just me?
Yeah, I think we're seeing you grab some random person on the street.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, someone who looks nothing like her, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And you call out her name, and you get hold of her, and it's a native woman of Constantinople who turns and shrieks at you and makes a witch sign at you.
okay. And I'm
With
just
her hand, puts does
uh,
makes some warding off sign with her hand.
and I'm just like talking over whatever she said, because I think I understand what she's saying, but I just really want to know what happened to her. So I'm just talking a different language than she does. And I think at some point she just grabs my hand to get it off her shoulder. And you all can see how I got like these weird bluish stains that do not necessarily look like she had like a really tight grab, but more like um hmm, a greenish blue, I guess. So there's a certain foulness that that all of you get from the look, and then she vanishes in the crowd again.
Mm-hmm.
Rutherford is negotiating with an apothecary there for some unnameable things in jars, in like bits and pieces of 3 different languages, because we don't exactly have one in common. And he says, James.
I think I don't immediately respond to that, but in about kind of 3 or 4 seconds, I realize you're referring to me and kind of like look around and say, yes?
James, I believe that we may have some unexpected visitors tonight. And I noticed that 2 rows back that there was an antique dealer that had some larger firearms in extremely good condition that you may desire to examine. And with that, I pass you a sheaf of bills. This should more than compensate the gentleman for some useful antique.
Practical thinking, I like that. And I turn and kind of with an approving look kind of go off to find this antique dealer. And I think that the guns I return with are in calibers that are entirely unnecessarily large for dealing with humans.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not too many bullets for them, but they're like a H&H 500 Express elephant gun or something like that.
Yes.
There's some so as you come back to Rutherford, there is a fellow in a fez who is whispering in his ear, who he nods and presses some coins into his hand, and he runs off.
think at this point I'm pointedly ignoring any further weirdness. It's kind of the fact that we're kind of trying to sneak under the radar of a police cordon is it's kind of enough for me to be dealing with at the moment. And so I notice that that you're making strange deals, but I very deliberately kind of turn my head and ignore it.
I think the antique dealer offered to wrap up your purchases in this beautiful red silk. So you can decide whether they're all beautifully wrapped up and thus unrecognizable.
I think so. Yes. Given that we're trying to lay low, I think that.
So it looks like you're carrying like you're carrying a tusk over your shoulder or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And if we want to, because I do have an idea, like I kind of wanted to, I have an thought for the opium den.
Well, I have a thought for the hotel. So we'll go right to the hotel then.
What was that?
I said we'll go right to the hotel then. Unless you wanted to do the opium den first.
Oh yes, I accidentally, that's the wrong thing written in the journey. That is the hotel. But no, yeah, go ahead and take the hotel then.
Okay, well we take our we take ourselves to the hotel where we change clothes into something more suitable to the oppressive heat here of Constantinople, and finally we it's getting late, we turn in for the night, and then around midnight there is a rattling sound, and I imagine that we're in two rooms that adjoin one another, and Rutherford wakes up silently and prods Jimmy.
I wake with a start.
James, I said, we have visitors. And with that, the shutter of our room is wrenched open, and people in robes with long wicked knives drawn.
Oh, this was unexpected.
Yes, unexpected. It says a visitor, not a good visitor. Rutherford produces a 38 special from nowhere, and probably under his pillow, and blows the first one away. But another one takes a swipe at him with one of these huge ugly knives, and he tumbles out of his bed off to the other side to avoid getting gutted like a fish.
So Jimmy and Rutherford both have like a penchant for firearms in the past, as we've seen. How is Erasmus dealing with the sudden outbreak of violence?
Yeah, that's right. I'm an occultist. I figured, prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
I think Erasmus is lying in bed with a fever and not really able to participate in the fight.
I just imagine like they're just having like a shootout, like using you in bed as like the cover they're hiding behind. And you're just completely out of it.
I think maybe the bed gets tipped over during the fight, and you don't really wake up. You just pull the blankets back over you.
Well, I'm sort of awake, but I just can't get myself to stand up, and I think I just like grab the blanket and roll under the other bed that is like just across the room.
And have a feeling like I'm going at it with a with what's effectively a blunderbuss. I think, given that there's so many attackers and the several attackers, and
the short-barreled shotgun,
yeah, and I'm interested. I'm interested to see how Ward kind of contributes in this altercation, because I have a feeling it's not going to be with a firearm.
Yeah, I think Ward, I mean, and this is going to be really annoying to Jimmy probably, because like Jimmy had to truck all of Ward's stuff onto the train. But I think like Ward just picks up two of these guys in either hand and just kind of gives them like a snap and snaps their necks and then like tosses them through the window. So like much like probably strong enough that they could have actually just carried their own fucking shit this entire time.
wouldn't be dignified.
Yes.
And
James,
does that deal with the last of them?
You seem informed on this, Rutherford.
Yes. Well,
Who are they with?
Yes, the last one perching on the balcony outside the window, having seen his fellows get blown away in various ways. He screeches in perfectly understandable but heavily accented English, "We are numberless. You are doomed." And with that he leaps from the balcony to certain death.
And I guess, yeah, Ward goes over, checks under the bed.
Jumps up and rips back the robe of one of the ones that's lying in the room. And you see that each of them has a acid burn tattoo on their chest. Or this one, at least, this one does, and presumably they all do. A tattoo made with some caustic substance on their chest of a strange symbol that that reminds you of something. And he nods and he said, "Not so soon, not so soon. God's damn it."
So is it just a burning, or is it more like a tattoo? Is there some color to it? And if so, what color?
It is the multicolors of healing flesh from a burn.
Yeah, it's like a scarification tattoo.
Yeah, it's scarified, but nobody would scarify with methods like this. I mean, these must have been insanely painful to have had administered to them.
By the way, I noticed that we have an ask first on suicide, and I'm fine with it, but I just wanted to check in with.
Yeah,
I just wanted to check in with everyone just to make sure.
Thank you for checking in. Thanks for that. I had forgotten myself.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that one. Sorry.
No, it's easy to do. I just kind of, given that I noticed, I wanted to kind of just highlight and check in, make sure everyone's fine. Cool.
So hotel officials, the hotel official, with a couple of burly attendants, show up at the door, and demand to know what's going on. a few some money changes hands, and the robed figures are picked up and carried out.
Yeah, I think Ward checks under the bed. Are you comfortable there, Erasmus, or would you rather return to bed?
And I will grab Ward, pull them closer, and say, please bring me to a den. Can't stand it anymore.
Yeah, that's
And you
where
see
I
me
was,
shaking.
that's where I was planning on going anyway, because I think that there's also one of the local crime lords, Ibrahim, who we might be able to see about getting us smuggled deep further along on our journey, is there. And I think it is this kind.
Yeah, I quite agree. We must assume that we are being watched from this point forward.
Cool. And I think that it is this, kind of opium is being like, it's kind of one of those places where like opium is being kind of smoked from a large hookah. Like kind of so that several people can be arranged around it. Ibrahim, since we're dealing business with him, offers feel free. And I think Ward just kind of takes a long, inhale and just keeps inhaling longer than it should seem possible for a person to do. And then just kind of lets out this big cloud of smoke and just sort of goes, pleasant. But how does Erasmus? What is Erasmus's?
Yeah, I think the Erasmus need to be carried all the way there. He's not able to walk by himself. And on the first place, he got offered to just lays down. As usual, people just attend and help such desperate customers with whatever they need, whatever they can't do themselves. And I think after smoking the first pipe, I'll just slumber away for a little bit to recover, and after that initial high, I'll be back to my former stuff. So I think that the first part of this is Erasmus is sort of separate from the group because he's not really able to experience what the others do.
Yeah. And I think that Ibrahim looks around. So it appears that we have another lot of explorers coming through our great city. You always are so entertaining. The last lot, you should know, was arrested by our noble emperor. He does not like people looking through and trying to steal national treasures from Ottoman-controlled lands. So what do you have for me that could make me want to risk crossing him? And I'm opening that up if somebody wants to respond.
Think that I pull out from the kind of inside of my kind of loose kind of robes that I've changed into because they work better in the heat. I pull a bag that's obviously heavy, and I'm kind of prepared for this scenario. This is a and I I place it down in front of me, kind of clearly outside of grabbing distance of anyone, and it has the kind of telltale chink and weight of gold. I
Oh,
don't say
well,
anything.
that is quite a reason there. Are you certain that it will be worth it?
We
We need safe
we are on.
the city.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, Rutherford barges in and said, we require safe passage out of the city.
Our journey is vital. We must not be delayed further.
Well, if you don't object to riding a waste barge, I think I can get you all out under our emperor's police guard, our emperor's guards.
I think on hearing the waste barge, I kind of pointedly reach down and take just a couple of coins out of the bag, kind of looking at you.
Oh, very well. I have shipments I need to send out anyway. I suppose we can forestall sending 1 or 2 shipments out and send you out in the crates instead. Does that work better for you?
I don't say anything, but I put the coins back.
Yeah, and I think that's where that scene will end. And I should note, I forgot to bring this up before, but for like this last one, when you're given the option of picking a trait, you can also choose to give it to another player. But they have to agree to take the trait.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Jimmy, you're the last one to frame a scene here. Would you like to also, if you want to reframe this a bit, like this could be like just like a boxing match or like just a regular human fight that people are betting on, because it does say like monkey knife fight.
I'm comfortable with narrating that if everyone's comfortable with it.
I'm fine. It is sufficiently bizarre that that I'm okay with it.
So I think this is, as we're on the way out of the den, we see in the corner this monkey knife fight with kind of punters betting on the outcome, and the kind of and the handlers riling up the monkeys. And as we cross the path of this, kind of, that we have to kind of being led by one of Ibrahim's men, the monkeys kind of screeching noises change, and they're suddenly not focused on each other. They're I think they leap at, and if it's okay with you, I think they leap at Ward. If that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you giving me one of those traits?
Monkeys can.
I think I'm giving you the choice between those traits, actually.
Yeah, I think that Ward takes them, and this is like in the hotel. This is a different Ward than you've been seeing. Like, Ward grabs each of them by their necks as they try to stab at them, and Ward just tosses them against, throws them against the ground and stomps on them. And I'm taking Bloodlust.
Owners of those monkeys are pissed.
And just to check in, that narration is all fine with folks. Cool. Okay.
and yeah, I think that yeah, the owners are and the punters are all kind of very, very angry at this, and I just turn
Me
around,
too.
stand my ground, and like, well, they attacked us, and kind of pointedly kind of reach into my robes, kind of pull out the handle of a pistol, and like, does anyone have a problem here?
There are going to be a couple of anonymous rocks thrown at us. So yeah, clearly some people in the back are going to fling stones at us, and so you have the choice of opening up on the crowd in general and just mowing people down, or doing something else.
But Erasmus would be.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go on.
I just would. I just would confront Ward about what the fuck. I just bet my father's watch on that smaller one. You owe me a fucking golden watch.
I think Ward just kind of looks over at you and says, I am sorry if they were relations of yours. You apes are very difficult to tell apart.
You owe me way more than a single golden watch.
James.
And be certain that I'll collect my debts.
James, you need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, Jimmy has caught one of the rocks that has been thrown, just casually flicked it back into the crowd. Kind of, Jimmy's had enough of putting up with crap at this point, and flicks the rock back into the crowd. Kind of walks up to the gambling table, grabs Erasmus's watch, drops it in his hand, and just kind of ushers everyone out before anyone can respond.
Cool. And I think that's where this scene ends. And so we're going to take maybe a 5-minute break here. I think that probably given the pacing of things, we're going to skip over our next destination and just go straight to the Lost City, because we have about 35 minutes left after the break. And I wanted to give us some time so we're not just rushing through everything. So cool. See you all in 5. Gonna have to edit that part out.
Yep. Well, it was terrifying. It was certainly unearthly, and I had no idea that such things existed.
Same.
So it fits nicely with the Lovecraftian theme.
Yeah. But yes, this brings us back to session. Like I said, we're probably going to skip this choice between Outer Mongolia and the Plateau of Lang, so that we can get to the Lost City of Imlutha and actually be able to play out some stuff, as opposed to just kind of glossing over things.
Once you've been to Mongolia once,
Yeah. I'm sure Rasmus has been there in his long travels around the world. But yeah, so let's see here. Does anyone want to take up the opening narration? Otherwise, I can.
After an extraordinarily difficult passage through the Andes Mountains, with Rutherford doing furious scribblings on bits of paper to try and make sense of the directions that we have, we top a rise that leads down into a valley. And there in the valley is a city that puts such places as Chichen Itza and Cusco to shame for its size. It seems impossible that such a large place could be lodged here in the Andean Mountains and never found before. But the strange doubling back on itself track that we were forced to take suggests the reasons why it was never discovered. The predominant feature that we encounter as we look down at the city is a wind, an insistent, chill, whistling wind that seems to move through the area to say that nothing exists here anymore. It is a wind that feels like long, long ago death. And as we make our way down into the city, that feeling that everything here died and a period of time ago that is longer than anything that we know has ever existed is only reinforced and strengthened.
Cool. Does anyone have one of those locations that sings out to them? Well, besides the one that literally says it's singing out.
I think the streets paved with bones makes a good opening. So I think we just see the camera kind of as we kind of focus on us from a distance as we enter the city. And I think this is very literal, that the streets are paved with bones, and there are bones of all creatures, human, animal, other things that look half human, half animal, neither human nor animal, things that shouldn't exist, are paving the street that we're walking down in the most intricate and beautiful geometrical patterns. And we're torn. You're torn as you look at them between appreciation of the beauty and horror at what it's built out of. And I think that's seen for that.
Yeah. I kind of want to add that I think where it says the kings and queens of Imlutha paved the streets with those that rose against them. These mosaics were one of their favorite pastimes.
You're a strange one, aren't you, Ward?
Rutherford nods as if it's perfectly natural that someone should be talking about this. And you see him making drawings of a particularly loathsome looking creature in his notebook as you all walk along.
Cool. Kind of going clockwise, unless somebody has like one that they really want to. Erasmus, did you have one that appeals to you?
I would like to go with the house of many windows.
Cool.
I think it is hard to look up from the street for quite a while. It is just quite horrific to see bone structures so unfamiliar, so strange. But at some point, we come at a cross. We arrive at a crossroad, and we see a house that at the base still is bone, and then mixes with glass and concrete-ish structures. It is like stone that has been melted. And it is a lot of those windows are impossible to distinguish from the wall itself. It is as if it is a fluid transition from the wall to the window, and therefore huge parts of the house are nearly impossible to grasp the sizes and the forms. It's hard to tell if the wall is just a straight wall, or if it's like concave, or like whatever the form of the actual wall is. And I think there's one window in particular that is, I think it's an octagon that is at our head's height, so we could peek through it into the house. And there's a lot of golden furniture within the house, but it's not furniture the way we know. It's nothing that looks like you could actually sit on. Sometimes it's just like a golden branch. Then there is something that could be a table. Then there is some cloth hanging from the roof, but it's clearly nothing that is that is just for decorative purpose. And again, all of these things hardly seem to have a beginning and an end. Everything is blending within everything. But in total, it looks more like a giant bird cage than it looks like a human house. Because of if those things are furnitures, it's more like a lot of branches birds would sit on, or hanging from. It's just hard to tell the actual purpose of it.
Well, we didn't like that people leave Imlutha. It was better that they stay here, where we could appreciate them.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add.
Yeah.
What citizen of Imlutha? Do you have a strong preference?
Like, do you have a strong preference? Because I'm fine going with either myself. Maybe towards the Stalking Shadow for myself, but if you really like that one, because it feels like you've been building up some confrontation here.
Yeah, no, I certainly have something in mind for either one, so that's fine. So go for the Stalking Shadow.
Yeah, I think that as we kind of move along the streets, there is a echoing, a skittering of insectile legs upon bone. And we see moving among the ruined buildings something large and vast and spidery. And Ward looks away at it. Death, I think, came for everyone here, except for those that can't, that death has no purchase upon. I kind of look at the rest of you. I think I may be more welcome here than you. I will try to keep this creature, this old queen or queen of Imlutha, busy. But you should flee from it. It will not like that those it has not permitted in are here.
I'm afraid that is not an option. If you're the only one with knowledge about this city, we can't leave you behind, or we can't let you go. I don't even really know what your actual goal is here. Why did you came back?
I look at you, Erasmus. What was it you said when we came back to Paris? That there you were like, it was like a rebirth. I come here for that, to my home. And I also, but you are like, friend is generous. You are like a pet to me, Erasmus. And I will not see you hurt. And then I just smack you over the head. And like, if you're okay with it, I'm just knocking you out and like handing you over to Jimmy. I think you are more intelligent about situations of violence than Erasmus. I will go and give you time. The creature cannot do such enough harm to me that it can to you.
Well, I'm not gonna argue. I look at this kind of the signs of this creature in the distance. I'm like, well, I'm not going to argue with that, and just sling Erasmus over my shoulder and look at Rutherford and just say, up for some running.
A lurking horror, amazing. And then he says, yes. This way.
Yeah, I think that's
Yep.
That's what we see. That's
Okay.
kind of pounding down these streets of bone.
We flee through the streets paved with bones, and in blind flight, hardly knowing where we are going, and find ourselves lost in this vast city, but come at length to a courtyard, and in the courtyard there is a huge pyramidal building, which has a profound psychic weight to it, as if you might stand here and say, this is the center of the world. Everything else is defined by its distance from this point.
Yeah. I like to pull in something that you introduced a while back in the fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is a gangly robed figure holding out a hand that looks simply skin, bone, with long extended fingers. And it stands at the entrance of this pyramid with its hand out, as if expecting a fare of some sort. And I think perhaps this is when you think back to that vial you were handed way back in Paris.
The Rutherford audibly grimaces and just emits a sound. He takes out the vial and he fingers it. He runs it between his fingers, considering tipping the liquid back and forth inside it, which moves from one side of the vial to another as if it weren't quite gravity that was impelling it, but as if it were moving of its own accord. And then finally he sighs and he places the vial into the bony fingers.
Yeah. And the creature takes it, runs it over a bit, and then uncorks it and pours it out onto the ground, where we sort of see it grow and almost blossom into this little, like, kind of creature. I imagine this kind of this mass of limbs that kind of rolls over and kind of like rolls up the stairs of the pyramid. Almost like it's leading, almost like, and then it kind of gestures like you're supposed to follow it.
I follow the creature. Rutherford follows the creature.
I also follow.
And
have you woken up? Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I interrupted. You go.
And we follow the creature, and it leads us through a maze of passages inside the pyramid, and finally into this great chamber. And in the chamber, there is a seat, like a great stone throne, and a altar or a great stone table. And in a recess on the table is a rod that is made of some sort of golden metal, which you realize upon entering the chamber is emitting a tone, a sweet tone that you can hear with your fingers as well as with your ears. And Rutherford slowly approaches towards the table. And as you do, and if you approach closer, the tone gets louder and more pervasive, suffusing the senses. And Rutherford suddenly dips his hand down and picks up the rod. And he holds it aloft, and the entire chamber is bathed in golden light.
Cool.
And he goes, "Oh, finally." And
Are
I-
you?
Hmm?
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And am I changing something?
Yeah, you're free to change a trait if you wish,
Uh-huh.
but you can keep it the same.
A change comes over Rutherford, and he seems not the person who came in anymore, but someone else.
Yeah, and you are now an avatar of Miskatonic. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think as we pull in, I think also because this does not have a kind of journeying home, like if you want to include in your narration also the sort of, for this last set, an epilogue of where your character ends up. I think we come to the catacombs of Imlutha, where we stood amid the bones and remains of the dead of the past kings and queens of this great city, where they kept the greatest of their number and the darkest of the powers available to them. We were not prepared for what we faced there, and few of us would come out who we were when we entered. And so, which of these stands out to folks?
I think the torchlight burning green stands out to me, but I think I'd like not to be first because that doesn't. I have an idea that doesn't really work kind of as the first one.
Cool.
All of us being, yeah, that's true.
I could go with the carving so vivid, or with the shape behind the stone.
I have a thought for the shape behind the stone, if that's cool with you. I think that, like, as you come in there, like I think the entire group comes in and you hear the whispering of Ward's voice. I am home. I am home. And that's what I think you see behind this great statue of one of the strange, monstrous kings and queens of Imlutha, is what almost looks like a cocoon and membrane of webbing. And inside it, you see a form, perhaps a bit human, perhaps a bit insectile, almost gestating within it. And you realize that this is what has become of Ward, who is the Gestating King of Imlutha.
I do have a question to that. You said that whenever you come to Imlutha, it's like a rebirth. Did you come here on your first visit as a human, or are you born here?
I don't know.
I think that there is a whispering. From here I am born. I leave as Imlutha dies. And to here I return. And with this birth, Imlutha lives again to die once again. And I guess if we want to say, because we do have the fact that a doom comes to Paris with Imlutha's rise, all of your primitive civilizations will be as flames to our fire. Well, kindling to our fire. And if you want to
maybe we just
stab into Ward's body or something in horror at this, feel free. If you want to kill Ward, feel free.
no, I just all my thoughts end up with one of our veils, with the humans being tortured. So I just needed some more time to come up with something different.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, if we want to move to another character, then
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to go, and I think we see that it's sometime later, and we see this in a vertical kind of view from the top down, and we see the green torchlight stalking Jimmy, who has gone off to look for the art that they came so far for. And we see the whispers gradually driving him mad with his own fears, and we hear running faster and faster and desperate scratching, and then finally we cut to a scene of a small antechamber with a mosaic on the wall of what we know are Jimmy's bones. And the mosaic is in the shape of one of his mother's paintings.
okay. Erasmus Rutherford.
I think I came up with something totally different. Okay, so it's not about I'm not dying. That is quite a surprising outcome for one of my characters recently. um, so I got the carving so vivid, and I think we see these carvings that resemble a lot of war scenes and then some rituals and then some mystic strange figures that somehow like are the bad guys within these carvings, and they perform some rituals that cause the city to not longer expand. So I think from the carvings we see that the original meaning was just to expand all around the globe and to devour everything that has been there.
Mm-hmm.
And that had been interfered with. And I think we see this blue and green markings that Nora or the other Nora gave me earlier on the bazaar. and while I'm checking for the carvings, and the carvings actually are moving, and it's just I'm looking just at one place, and the whole story goes like it would be a television screen or something like that. It's constantly changing and constantly telling the story and then repeating and looping. And I'm just fascinated by what I'm seeing, and I can't explain it, so I can't turn my head. I'm just like drawn into these moving carvings. And that is when one of the I'm clearly an intruder, and at some point I just get stabbed by one of the insectoid uh, I don't know what is it. If you're the queen, are all of them queens? Do you have like other servants, or
Feel free
what's
to
the
add.
structure like?
Feel free to add
Okay.
details. Like I mostly like I've just been bullshitting everything I've said.
Okay. Yeah. So it's one of those creatures living in the city that stabs me from behind and injects their poison for whatever dark purposes they usually inject the poison into humans that come here. But these bluish and greenish markings visibly fight off the poison injected into me. And at some point, a figure steps out of the shadow, and for me, it's clearly Nora. And she grabs my hand and places a dagger in it. And she says, "You know why you have been chosen." And with that dagger, I'm gonna stab Ward, and then escape with Nora. Without like I'm clearly gun mad, but not to an extent where I'm changed forever.
Okay,
So
cool. And then yeah, Rutherford.
Okay. Is Ward dead?
I guess fictionally, like, is it more interesting to you if Ward is dead or if Ward is like screeching in like pain and anger?
I think Ward's harder to kill than that.
Okay.
So yeah, Ward is screeching in pain and anger, and Rutherford holds aloft his rod, and the area is again suffused in golden light, and he speaks, and it is not his voice. He throws off his robe, and underneath it he is stripped to the waist, and on his chest is burned that same symbol that you saw in the cultists that attacked in the hotel. And the tattoo that's in his chest begins to smoke. And he holds the rod aloft, and he approaches toward, and the golden glow suffuses both of them. And he says, in a voice that's not his own, "Hush now, hush. Our time is done. It is time to turn the page." And a little tiny sphere of nothingness appears between the two of them. Its edges flickering and dancing in the illumination of the golden rod. sparkling. And the sphere expands and it expands until it engulfs the two of them. And then it winks out of existence and they're all gone.
Yeah, and I like the idea that like Imlutha itself almost fades out of time. Like it still exists, but it's no longer a part of the world anymore. And I think the last image we see is like Erasmus fleeing from the city, only for him to like turn around and see that it's now like there's just mountains behind him.
Yeah. Well, I just, yeah, there's mountains, or maybe like a little ruin, you know, a few stones. Nothing anyone would remark at. Nothing to mark, or not any hardly mark grandeur, but just mountains is good too. So we'll go with that one. Yes,
Yeah.
the buildings. If he were to look to his right and left, he would see the buildings fading out of existence as Imlutha leaves this world, until there's nothing there.
Cool.
And that's the end.
Awesome. So yeah, I think this is a good moment to end the broadcast. Thanks everyone for watching and participating. There were some references. There were some ads that accidentally appeared that you have not seen, but the rest of us have. Just as an explanation for that little conversation we had earlier. Yeah. Thanks for watching. And thanks everyone for showing up. It was great.